This is Ian Nethercutt from the famous Auto Hub show, and today I'm doing my famous one-on-one series, which is not live despite what it says behind me. That's my default background for all the stuff that I do. And I have the pleasure of interviewing someone who happens to be Canadian, but like me, has lived in different places. I've lived in Canada, US as well. And it's not Canada-US battle. It's nothing about elbows up or anything of to that regard. It's more that that's kind of interesting because I don't do it all that often. Just because a lot of the interviews I do are with Americans these days and people internationally. And I've actually done an interview with people as far away as Georgia, the country, if you don't know where that is. Sopo, actually, I interviewed her. But David, maybe you can share a little bit about sort of what you're doing now, what you did before in automotive, but more importantly, why automotive? Because I know there's always a story here when you start talking about automotive.
Sure. So I'll start with what I was doing. I've actually been in the software world all around North America and globally for the last almost 30 years.
Wow.
And I spent the last 25 in the SaaS world. So very early on, actually with a little Canadian company called BlackBerry back in the day.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And then I moved into the connected automotive world about 15 years ago. And most recently with a little Canadian company to start with called Fleet Complete out of Toronto. It was a small regional player, and we grew that over a 10-year period to be one of the largest connected vehicle players for fleets in the world. And then for the last 4 years, I've been with Ford in a couple of roles, but most recently as the Chief Revenue Officer for Ford's Integrated Services. So essentially, I've been fortunate to be able to, deploy amazing software solutions for retail and fleet customers to millions of vehicles globally with Ford Motor Company.
Fantastic. So, for those people who don't know about what that revenue model is, maybe you could share little details. I mean, I know about Ford Motor, I know about Ford Direct, which is a division of Ford Motor for you people out there who don't know that. But what I know that there's a lot of manufacturers now that are looking for new revenue streams. What is the goal behind that department, specifically at Ford, and how does that sort of line up to where you are now, moving from the BlackBerry, I guess before they had the automotive software division to
Yeah,
currently?
it's kind of funny and ironic that Ford actually bought some portions of BlackBerry's business a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Ford business it's really about specifically in the Ford Pro. I was one of the founding members of the Ford Pro team about 4 years ago with the goal of bringing a holistic fleet solutions group to fleets. And that's become one of the most successful groups of solutions, one of the most successful software solutions globally right now. It's growing really well, and I'm really proud of the work we did at Ford. But what that actually led me to is, it kind of led me to an idea, and the idea was, I said, you know what, I'd really like to figure out how to democratize fleet and retail uptime solutions for underserved markets. Segments of the market that don't necessarily have the scale or ability to deploy these large enterprise class solutions or have the resources or scale to be able to do it. And these things have really only been available to larger fleets and larger service networks and larger dealer networks. And that led me to a couple of conversations with some investors, uh, along with some industry folks who are all saying, "Wow, great idea! You should go do this, Dave." And in one of those conversations, they said, "Oh, have you met the guys at VMS?" And I said, "No, I haven't." So, a quick conversation, and turns out VMS is had the same vision I did, and what we wanted to do, and they'd actually had quite a bit of roadmap ahead of them or before them already to in development engineering, creating these amazing solutions, and it just made a lot of sense for us to join up. With my experience in scaling organizations, uh, building software groups globally, and the amazing talent and tools and the AI first solutions that VMS have created, it just made a lot of sense to team up, and here we are.
So when you're looking at, I guess, telematics and fleet, telematics at just OEMs in general, And you look at sort of, I guess, I was the most famous misstep was probably BMW, where they wanted to charge for heated seats on a monthly
Heated
recurring revenue
seats, yeah.
model, which I thought was kind of funny. A couple of years ago, I bought a Jeep product, and there was a little bit of a disconnect between the app MRR app annual service and the dealer, and sort of the dealer not understanding what they were trying to sell their customer and them not understanding how to sell it in the right way, which was kind of ironic. So they called me and they said, "Hey, you have this app. Did you want to have that app for a period of time?" I said, "Well, I already have it." And they said, "Well, we'd like to sell you an annual contract." And I said, "Okay, but like when does that start?" And they're like, "Well, not for a few months." I said, "Well, wouldn't you like set that up with the dealer and someone's gonna call you so that way?" So it was
You
kind
know,
of funny. It was kind of funny, and not in a ha ha way, but kind of funny because I think there's a lot of opportunity when you look at apps. From Ford, I was talking actually to their director of accessory sales at NDA a couple years ago, and I was saying, "Hey, there's an app for the car. The app's in the phone of the person and probably on CarPlay or Android or whatever they're using. It could sell them things if like those things kind of lined up with the car and the driver and the time of
yeah.
year and all that. Like that is interesting." And they were kind of interested in it, but at the same time, it wasn't something they were implementing. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So
You know what? You hit on a big trend in the dealer world right now. The dealers have so many things coming at them. You're looking at wholesale change, whereas holistically, dealers in the past were very focused on a couple of key things. They were focused on selling cars and servicing cars.
yeah,
And now, regardless of the OEM, dealers have software solutions they're expected to sell, F&I products beyond, the regular ones that they're
yeah,
expected to sell. They're trying to deploy connected solutions. They're trying to get MRR or monthly recurring revenue type solutions, not like maybe BMW's heated seats, but things like, autonomous driving
yeah,
solutions for a cost or other things. So there's a huge amount of confusion in the dealer level which is kind of how we got here. There's a huge amount of confusion at the dealer level, and one of the VMS's key, benefits is the fact that we're trying to make it easy. We're trying to make it easy for dealers, for third party repair, and for fleets, um, by creating this AI first platform that offloads much of that difficult work. And you take just one example, in the fleet world. Uh, you know, Many dealers need to be moving into having closer relationships with their fleets. If they don't, somebody else is going to.
yeah,
And I think that's a wake up call many of these fleets need to understand. Somebody's going to have a relationship with them. You're the best placed as a dealer to have that relationship with that fleet. They trust you, they buy their vehicles, they get their service from you. And in many of these cases, specifically with small businesses, they've had lifelong relationships, 20, 30
yeah,
years. My dad's business, he's bought his Fords or GMs from so and so, and that continues. And they want to have that same relationship when it comes to how they service and manage the uptime of that fleet. So what we've done at VMS is, we haven't really created it's not a telematics platform. It's really an intelligent operating system and an operating layer for vehicles, fleets, and owners. Where traditional platforms capture data, VMS really interprets that data. It prioritizes it and it acts on it autonomously, offloading all that very difficult work that dealers have to do. You and I both know the management of these things, getting vehicles back in the bay, taking, scheduling appointments, talking to people. It's very, very people intensive. It's very resource intensive. And with VMS, we now have an AI native, not AI enhanced platform that's we're not retrofitting intelligence on top of
yeah,
telematics, but we're really creating a new rules based logic and with or sorry, we're creating a platform that's not on top of rules based logic or architectures, but we built from the ground up. And that's allowing us to build fundamentally new solutions for the industry and for dealers that they've never seen. So examples like connected vehicle data coming in that used to have to be managed by a service manager, which would be what's the problem, make the call, schedule the appointment, make sure it's done, is now all done by AI.
Yeah.
So this is really about democratizing the solutions that are available to the very large players to people that and dealers that might not have that ability and or fleets and or service networks.
Are you working with companies like Numa or Toma or companies like that to interconnect with, say, a CRM or DMS in your platform to sort of make those outbound calls in an automated fashion to move that needle? Or is that something you're doing? Or
So that's a great question. Right now, the VMS platform is an open platform, and via API we can integrate with DMSs and other third-party systems. We are right now looking to build out and are working and starting to build the relationships with that ecosystem of players that are going to feed into the AI platform, specifically around DMSs, communication systems. VIN recognition and DTC washing, things like that. Lots of tools we're looking at. But yes, absolutely. We're looking to build a world-class ecosystem that will allow us to create the best experience and get the best repairs and really focus on driving that uptime for
are you
fleets
doing
and
anything
dealers.
with like roadside assistance or mobile service or anything like that?
Um, Yeah, I mean, the all of these things are on the plate right now. Our biggest goals right now are obviously continuing to invest in the current AI platform, AI first platform that we have, whilst we look at building out our distribution in North America, and as well as building out our onboarding and our training to get our customers on board, whilst we build out that more holistic ecosystem to
Right.
drive the entire solution.
And then what like if a dealer says, "Hey, I really like this platform. I'm really interested in participating in that." Is that something where they're getting the data and the integration and the OEM as well, or is that something they're just getting? Like, how does that work from a dealer point of view? Because I know they're all a little paranoid about access
Yeah,
to data these days, especially from the CRM side. In full disclosure, CDK Global is one of my sponsors, so I'm not trying to beat anyone up, but there's definitely a lot of concern, I guess, healthy concern in that area.
sure. PII and security are paramount to obviously what we're doing. And it's you and I both know it's one of the greatest concerns of the industry today.
Yeah,
We view first off security and PII compliance as being one of the greatest uh, and most important fundamental portions of our platform. And when it comes down to the data, we actually are, collecting data off the vehicle. We're getting a signal into the VMS platform that is staying local to the dealer and to the customer. We're not sharing it outside that. We're not sharing it with the other third parties unless the customer requests and or asks to do it. But other than that, it's between your relationship with your dealer and yourself.
yeah.
And from a we can and plan to work with other third parties that will again complete the ecosystem as you're pertaining to with
Yeah.
regards to you know post warranty retention, uh, third party service repair programs and things like that.
And you're working with companies, say, on the phone side, on the video side, and those kind of sides, or is that something that's in the long-term plan?
Right now, we're very focused on developing the core fundamentals, which is
Yeah,
focusing on the uptime.
yeah,
Uptime is the biggest problem fleets specifically have right now. You and I both know that, and that underserviced market, right?
yeah,
Larger fleets have the ability to go to an FMC or a fleet management company or deploy major telematics global industry type solutions with that take a lot of resources, a lot of time and effort and energy. We're focusing on those underserved markets, and we really want to focus on Uptime for those small and medium-sized fleets, specifically with our fleet product, because those are the guys, they've got the biggest pain. When a vehicle goes off the road, it's not one of 100, it's one or two of 10. And
Yeah,
that's 10 to
right.
20% of a small company's revenues. So we have to deliver an easy to use virtual fleet manager that allows small fleets to gain the same type of competitive advantages that large companies have to keep their vehicles healthy on the road and earning revenue.
So would then that replace like if someone's working with say a company like Holman or Enterprise or what's the other one that comes to mind? Element Fleet to pick another
Element.
one.
So
Would that allow that dealer who maybe isn't as competitive with those scale companies to compete better that against
So
those companies?
great question. And when it comes down to FMCs or Holmans, the elements, they typically do not want to deal with anything less than about 200 units. That is that is their kind of bottom end of where they gain scale and efficacy in what they're doing. Having worked with them a lot, um, and that's, we find ourselves, we're actually complementing what they do, but we're just
Right.
bringing that down into a more, we're democratizing it, that kind of interaction, that kind of management, that kind of insight for smaller fleets.
And then
Yeah,
how would someone get
you can't throw bodies at a whole bunch of 10s and 20 unit fleets, right? It's just not
yeah,
scalable. But that's where the technology has come to today with the AI. Now you have the ability to do things you couldn't even do 18 months ago, to be able to manage a fleet, get insights on the fleet, make decisions, and provide optionality to a fleet manager where maybe a fleet manager used to have to go off and say, well, I need to go and research the RO. What's the issue?
yeah.
Do the planning, do this, do that. Well, now the AI can give a suggestion, say this is what the issue is. And by the way, it's a critical issue. You need to take it off the road, or maybe it's not, and it's just going to be causing you some fuel economy issues. You can take it off the road on the weekend when it's not earning money, or and B, uh, go out and start looking at the scheduling, how much the possible RO could cost, and then present options to that fleet manager and say, look, you can go to these four shops. The likely cost is going to be X, and it's okay if you leave it till Saturday. How much would that benefit a fleet manager? And I'd say a huge amount.
So does that also empower them to then be more competitive in that smaller segment and maybe even mid segment with those companies, being that they now have sort of a, a very powerful tool that maybe they didn't have before? Does that allow them to do that?
Absolutely. And if you think about small business, in the small business world, when you think about fleets and you're looking at a 10-unit fleet, very often that proprietor is in a truck driving around doing calls as well. Right. And that person, if they're not doing calls, then they're actually going back at the end of the day and working 5, 6, 7, 8 more hours to do all the administrative work that they need to do. Well, now
Right.
imagine if that administrative work was 80% of it was taken away and you're just presented with options as opposed to having to do all the work. That's the power of the VMS platform. It's again, it's not a retrofit. It's actually taking intelligence and giving you options and solutions as opposed to having you go off and have to go do it yourself.
And what about the cost on a monthly? Is it a monthly recurring revenue model? Is it an annual model? Does it matter how many, how many accounts you have? Like how does a dealer get started with it? That kind of thing?
So, great question. Right now, we are working through our pricing model as we're onboarding our first customers.
Okay.
Um, and so there'll be more information on that coming soon. It's going to be a monthly recurring revenue, or it's
Okay.
going to be an MRR charge or a SaaS charge.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, we're working through that right now.
And then from a point of view of how quickly they get started, so let's just say they wanted to do it, they like what you're offering, and they wanted to get started, like how quickly could they be onboarded, and what's the support and training like?
So, as I said, we're working through the and some of the final. We're working through the engineering of the VMS fleet platform right now, and
Yep,
that's scheduled to come online probably in the new year. We have a lot of the functionality already in place, a lot of the tools.
yep,
There's other pieces that are being put in place right now to get us to what we like, what people call product market fit.
Yeah.
The first product that we're going to be actually releasing is actually more in the what I call in the care or retail uptime
Okay.
area, and the fleet will be following shortly after that.
And then, what do you, I mean, what's the feedback you've had from the dealership body on it? What are they excited about? What do they think about the product that you've
Oh,
shown them so far?
that's one of the things that's been really, really refreshing and amazing to me is that they immediately see and go, "Wow, this is." I used to have to throw bodies at this, and now it it's just happening.
Yeah.
Suddenly I'm getting more ROs through my door. I know that I can fill my bays better. My margins will increase, my revenues will increase, and not only that, but I'm creating a way better experience for my end customer. And
Right.
now I'm going to have a much better relationship with them long term. The customer gets a better experience. They're not having to run around chasing things. They get an automatic they're going to be getting an automatic notification saying you have an issue with your vehicle. This needs to be done. You should bring it away so that it doesn't leave you stranded on the side of the road. Don't make it a catastrophic one. By the way, here's your optionality for 4 different appointments. Uh, and and you think about it from both a fleet and a retail perspective. Now that we know what's happening with the vehicle, that dealership can ensure to have the right parts ahead of time. So what used to be in the fleet world, a vehicle coming off the road, diagnostics being done, parts being ordered, and then repair being done after that, that's in some cases 3 to 4 days.
Right.
Now it is, I know what's happening on the vehicle. I've scheduled my appointment. The vehicle comes in off the road. The parts are already there. And it goes from a uh, it goes from a 3 to 4 day job to could be a 2 hour job or a 3 hour
Right.
RO. And that is for a fleet or a business. A business truck's earning, $1,000 to $1,500 in revenue a day. So you're not just saving on your parts cost and time in the shop, you're saving on revenue. So what
Right.
could be an 800 or maybe, I'm just throwing a number out, a $500 repair, a simple repair, it's not just that cost. It's the 4 days off and $6,000 in revenue you lost. So speed and getting those vehicles back on the road and uptime for fleets is important. And of course, for retail people and retail buyers, this is the second largest capital expenditure people typically make is a vehicle. And keeping your vehicles running longer, they're way more expensive, keeping them healthy, making sure that your time is not being wasted and that your car is not being put in the shop for 3 4 days. Can you imagine just one repair where it was a 2 or 3 hour repair as opposed to a 3 to 4 day repair? How much is a person going to be willing to pay for that?
Right. Yeah, I mean it's definitely solves a big problem or a big opportunity, fills that gap. It sounds like the dealers are real excited about it. I mean, I know the OEMs can be a little political, not in a political way from a politics point of view, but from a political point of view of what people's impression of them is. What has their take on it been from a point of view of, okay, you're going to help our dealers with fleet? Like, what do they think about it?
Well, great question. We're not necessarily, I mean, as I said earlier, many of the dealers that exist out there, the largest OEMs have some tools already.
Yeah,
We're very much focusing on those underserviced market, those dealers that don't have these types of tools.
right.
So for the Ford, for the, I'll say for the Fords or GMs and the folks out there that have these connected technologies, we actually see this as being complementary to them from a standpoint that if we're enabling those underserviced markets that they can't get to, well, then we're going to be driving ROs that is going to drive parts revenue for the OEMs anyways. So it's
Right.
a win-win situation.
And what about the independent deal? I mean, there's a few independents in Canada and the US that might do a little bit of fleet or have a big retail operation on the used car side, or maybe even work in, say, the subprime where they're doing a lot of used vehicles, maybe in a fleet scenario. I don't know how prevalent that is. Is that something where they've approached you and said, hey, we like this solution for that kind of option?
We've actually received some really strong feedback and desires around the used market. And the used market, as people keep their vehicles longer, third-party service contracts and the desire to create a holistic third-party service contract along with a connected care program is highly desirous for both the third-party service contract provider. Some of the larger dealers do their own, as you know, do
Yep.
their own third-party service contract for multi-dealers. They're self-funding a lot of that stuff, right?
Yep.
Imagine if they could actually reduce their claims costs because they're bringing vehicles off the road before they become catastrophic failures. And of course, you have a happier customer who's not stranded on the side of the road because they caught an error early. You're talking some, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in cost saves in any single event. So better experience, lower cost, and higher savings for the dealers, better experience, less hassle, and obviously a better, just more value in their vehicle where they've not had a catastrophic failure. So you retain that residual value. So I think it's a win-win situation on both sides of the house.
Yeah, and if you're not familiar with the Canadian market, I mean, in Quebec, to pick a random market, there is a lot of, used car dealers out there in Quebec. And actually, when I worked for Nissan Motor, the funny thing around the certified used in that market specifically is a lot of the dealers had a separate used car lot for their used. And they were able to twist Nissan's arm and say, hey, we'll allow you to be certified on a different lot just to get you into the program. So when you look at the used car market, and I think people underestimate the size of it, in the U.S. market, I think there's 120,000 independent dealers, and I think in Canada there's roughly 12,000. To give you some math, when you look at the new car franchises in the U.S., it's 15 to 17,000, and Canada, I think, depending on who you talk to, is somewhere between 5 and 7,000. But the interesting thing is we've seen over the last 3 to 5 years and accelerating over the last 18 to 24 months, you're seeing less total retailers with more points, but more volume. So the used car side is probably going to grow more just because if someone wants to start a new business in auto, used is probably your entry level. I mean, a lot of people don't have access to say 25 to $50 million to build a business. They're really looking to start somewhere. And I think used is a huge opportunity, especially as we see car prices rise and life expectancy of cars or ownership term extend. I think the numbers recently were used to be 9 years, and now it's as long as 12 years for ownership for
Yeah,
vehicles. And we're also going to see some interesting stuff around EVs, especially around the affordability of used EVs, with mandates dissing, obviously getting obliterated. You're not probably going to see as many new sold just because of price point, but the used market is a massive market, especially for fleet. If I've got a
yeah.
fleet of, gasoline vehicles and I'm in the right market, a fleet of electric may be a great solution, right?
As some of these folks have been coming to us for these types of solutions, we've done a little research, and I believe the used car market is 9 million vehicles in the US every year.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's just this absolutely stupendously large one. And again, the one of the great powers, and keep going back to the platform, is the fact that it's OEM agnostic. Um,
Yeah.
and it's powertrain agnostic as well. So it doesn't matter if it's an EV, it doesn't matter if it's an ICE vehicle or a hybrid vehicle. The VMS platform can handle them all with a plumb. And not just that, but it doesn't matter the brand as well. That's the biggest problem. How do you have, I would say OEM based kind of platforms when we have five, six, seven platforms, eight platforms for a used car dealership, as opposed to having one platform that can handle all types of vehicles, from a obviously from a not maintenance, but from a confusion and from a complexity standpoint, it makes a lot of sense to have a platform that does a lot of the work for you, A, and B can handle all types of vehicles.
Fantastic. Well,
Yeah, both brand and powertrain.
David's information will be in the description below, but definitely, David, where could they find out more about the platform? Is there a website? Is there some information they can get on the product as you prepare to expand the launch?
Uh, there will be a website up very shortly. It's going to be www.vms.ai.
Okay.
Um, and you can learn more there. And you can obviously get onto the site, request a demo, talk to a person live, and learn more about what we're doing. We're very excited about it.
And David is on LinkedIn, so if you want to reach out to him in the meantime on LinkedIn, that's available. The details will be below. Thanks for taking the time to talk a little bit about an area that we don't talk about very much, which is fleet, especially the underserviced fleet. I know there's a lot of big fleet companies out there that handle thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of vehicles, but there's not a lot that focus on, say, that small area. I remember when I worked with a GM store years ago in the Calgary market, and they were basically had their own fleet division that just dealt with trucks just for the oil patch on a short-term fleet basis. So what they would do is put them out there as a fleet, and then 6 to 8 months later, they'd take them all out and sell them as used cars. So they basically built their own small fleet or large fleet, depending on how you look at it, business within a General Motors dealership. So it was kind of interesting that they were doing that. And I've even seen an example, I think it was in the California market, where what they were doing was they had a shortage of used cars. So what they were doing was they were renting out new cars as demos, basically, and then putting them into the certified used program afterwards, after a period of time after they aged out on the mileage, which I thought was kind of a creative way to create used cars from thin air, pretty much. So I think that there's definitely some interesting twists coming from the dealership to try and adapt to changes in the market, whether it's government or OEM or financial, trying to make it affordable for people to drive a vehicle, no matter what that vehicle is. And I even talked to a company, I think they're out of the East Coast of the US. You can check out the interview on the channel. But it basically, they're trying to do like a flexible lease program for consumers that they can change the car whenever they want, which is interesting. I know people have tried it before, but it was an interesting model because I think, if you needed three different cars in a year, that might work for you. But I think the challenge was inventory, is they had inventory
I remember
limits.
those guys. I remember the folks that were doing that. There, you get a truck or you could get a small car. You could whatever. Yeah, I remember that guy.
Yeah, so this is a new guy doing it, U.S. based. I'm not sure what the scale of it is, but it's kind of like the, I guess, Clutch or Carvana or whatever model, but taking the leasing portion and making it almost like a fractional lease, which is kind of an interesting way to do it. But thanks very much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it. And information will be below, and stay tuned for an update on the small fleet software side from David as they get ready for launch in 2026. Obviously, as the website goes out, I'm assuming you can register for a demo or sign up to get part of the
Yep.
initial offering. And have yourself a great weekend. Thanks for doing the
Thanks
interview.
very much, Ian. It was great speaking
All
with
right.
you.
Yeah.